Welcome back to Sliver Bite TV. Let's make satay beef. First up, we're going to make some YumYum marinade aid. So I have taken the ingredients from the YumYum seasoning and then made a little marinade aid that you can put over any of your meat that you're tenderizing. So in a bowl, you'll put some garlic powder, onion powder, white pepper, sweet paprika, sugar, salt, and I put chili flakes and black peppercorns into a mortar and pestle and give that a grind before putting it in. You'll find that you have majority of these ingredients if you do Asian cooking quite often. So it's just as easy to make the seasoning or the marinade at home. Give that a little mix around before you add in the soy sauce. In the traditional YumYum seasoning, you will use a soy sauce powder. However, I found that hard to source, so I just went for the soy sauce as I was putting it into a wet marinade anyway. I give that a little whisk just to release all of the flavors before putting it over my meat a little further on. Now it's time to prepare that topside beef. You can go to a butcher to get a size that you would like. However, this is the smallest one that I could find at the local shop here in Australia. So you can either cut off just what you need and then use the rest of the meat for another recipe, or you can do the whole lot. I'm removing that large piece of fat on the outside because we're frying. It won't have time to render that fat off. And if you can get as much as the sinew off as you possibly can at this stage, it will help having to cut it off when you're slicing it into your thin slices. You'll see that I'm handling the meat quite a bit. I'm trying to find the best places to slice with the grain at this point to give myself the long lengths of meat to enable to get these sort of 1 inch squared pieces of meat. Depending on how large your chopping board is, get another bowl to put in the meat ready for cutting. Just tidying up the piece of meat, ready to cut into thin slices. You'll see that some of the sinew is quite stubborn, so you might need to take a little bit of the meat along with it, just so you've got a nice clean piece of meat. you'll see that the slices are just over 1 mil thick. You want them quite thin because they're in the frying pan for only 3 minutes, so it doesn't have a great deal of time to cook. So the thinner the better, but obviously you don't want them too thin, otherwise they'll just disappear in the marinade. And at this point you'll be cutting against the grain. And just be careful when you get to the last few slices, because you've got very little meat to hold on to, it'll start slipping. And then place that in the bowl that will become the marination bowl. Very fortunate in Australia to have some amazing meat available to us. Now that all your cut meat is ready to marinate, sprinkle over the baking soda and tempered water. And you'll give that a good mix. Make sure that all the meat is coated and submerged, or be able to be submerged. You want the baking soda to really penetrate into the meat to tenderize it. We're going in first with the white pepper and salt, the caster sugar, the YumYum marinade aid, the sesame oil, and while that's dripping, I'm putting in the shaoxing rice wine vinegar, and some dark soy. This will assist in the colouring of the meat. And now we give that a good mix around to make sure that all ingredients are fully incorporated into the marinade. Now sprinkle over your corn flour. And mix well. And then that's covered and put into the fridge for half an hour, but no more than 50 minutes. There is such thing as over marination, and it'll completely obliterate your meat. It'll just turn it to mush if you over marinate. And that's in large part to the baking soda. Now it's time to get the rest of our ingredients ready for the final part of the cook. So we're going to do some wedges of brown onion. Now I do them in a half wedge just because I don't like too much onion on my fork when I go to take a bite. You'll see that a lot of Chinese restaurants will have the full length of a wedge. And a lot of the time it's used as a garnish rather than to consume, but I like to consume each and every ingredient that's in the meal. You can split the wedges now, or you can do it in the wok with your spoon. I'm adding 5 cloves of garlic into this recipe. It does yield a good kilo worth of satay beef, so you can add or subtract the amount of garlic. If I had it my way, I'd double the amount of garlic. After I've peeled them, I make sure I give them a little wash under some cool water just to make sure that all of that husk is gone. So you want to have them in 1 millimeter squared cubes, just so that you can still see them. You'll notice that in a takeaway satay beef, you'll actually see the garlic. I am using a handy little rock back and forth tool, as you can see there, from a Swedish shop that I'm sure that we all know. It's so handy and has the little holes that make the perfect little diced onion, and very little bruising, and keeps all of the juice inside as well. And ensure you've got your onion and your garlic in separate bowls, because they're introduced at different times, as the garlic tends to burn very quickly. Now I'm just preparing the garnish. I'm putting some spring onion and some fresh chili. And I like to use the kitchen scissors for it. I just find it so much easier than sitting there doing tiny little cuts for the garnish. And that is all of the chopping that we need to do for this recipe. It's actually pretty low impact. Now it's time to set up our cooking station. I'm taking over my coconut milk. Peanut butter and onion wedges. Brown sugar and curry powder, garlic, and soy sauce and shaoxing wine. I have removed the marinated meat from the fridge. You can drain off the excess water slash marinade. Otherwise, you can just tongue it into the oil inside the wok. You will need to probably clean the wok halfway through this cook, as you'll get a bit of the marinade sticking to the bottom of the wok. You'll see that I'm using some oil that I've used in past recipes that I've strained through. After this cook, I will have to discard of it though. It does get quite messy. Once your oil is at 160 degrees, you can start dropping in or pour in your marinated meat. You will be cooking this for approximately 3 minutes and then removing from the oil. Make sure you have a separate bowl to the side, as you won't be able to return the meat to the soiled bowl. We don't want any cross-contamination. If you adjusted the temperature, make sure your oil is at 160 degrees to ensure that you're cooking at the right temperature. As you remove some of the meat, you will lose a little bit of oil, so you may need to replenish it just to make sure that you have enough oil in there with the meat. As I remove the last cooked beef, I will wash that wok, as there was quite a bit of the marinade that had burnt to the bottom. Going in with some fresh oil. Make sure you don't put too much oil in, as this oil will remain in your dish until serving. So you don't want to have it too oily, otherwise the end result will just be a lot of oil. Once the oil's hot enough, you can throw in your onions, and we're going to saute for 2 to 3 minutes. You might start to see a little bit of colouring, but we're just looking for a translucent onion. Please excuse my sad attempt at an onion toss. And you'll see that I've got my slotted spoon, and I'm just going to break up some of the onion that has stuck together. I want to make sure that it's been cooked evenly. Time to add in the garlic, and it's very quickly followed by the meat. You'll see that I adjusted the temperature down a little bit, because we certainly don't want that garlic to burn. It'll permeate through the whole cook otherwise. Now add in your beef, and we'll give that a good mix around, and then have a bowl, a clean bowl ready to put the meat and the onion mix in, ready to start our sauté sauce. There we go, that was a better flip. The beef and onion mix has probably been on for about 2 minutes now. You wouldn't want any more than 3 minutes, otherwise you're just toughening up that meat. You'll see that there is a little bit of garlic and onion that is stuck to the wok. That's okay. We'll be able to deglaze that once we put in our coconut milk. On medium heat, place in your peanut butter. And coconut milk. And let the heat start to melt the peanut butter. Add in the brown sugar and curry powder. Followed shortly by the soy sauce and shaoxing wine. Make sure you're adjusting the temperature accordingly. You don't want to ever see any bubbles because we don't want to boil this. We just want to heat it. Otherwise it will become very gluggy. And you'll see a little later on, I add a little more coconut milk because it started getting a little too thick. Time to return the meat and make sure that you're stirring that really well to ensure that every piece of beef has that glorious satay sauce covered on it. Today I'm just using some jasmine rice. But you can have a look at my other recipes and create some fried rice to put with this satay beef. Adding on some of that fresh chili and spring onion garnish. And I like to spoil myself with some sesame seeds. And there you have it, homemade, fresh satay beef. Well worth it. It's absolutely stunning.